like fisticuffs in the bathroom stall, punching each other right in the face, pulling hair. Hello, my good sirs and ladybirds. Welcome to my channel. My name is Danny, and today we're going to be talking about the dangers and disadvantages that exotic dancers face in the workplace. I was a dancer. I started right when I was 18, like literally like a couple days after I turned 18, and I stopped when I was 30, which was 4 years ago. I'm getting old. I'm 34 right now. But that was 12 whole years of my life that I spent in the industry taking my clothes off for money. And the things that I'm going to be talking about today are things that I had to deal with myself, that I had to go through myself. And it wasn't just me. There was other dancers that I saw dealing with these things. And I'm going to bring on one of the dancers that I used to work with later so you can hear her perspective on this as well. So if this sounds interesting to you, please give me a big thumbs up and leave a comment down below. That really helps the growth of my channel. And subscribe. When you do, hit that bell so you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. So I broke this down into two main categories. We had the external and the internal. So the external is like the environment and the people in the environment. And the internal is the changes caused to who you as a person by being in that environment and the consequences of those changes. So I wrote this down. I'm a little bit of an airhead, so I need to keep myself on track. So we're just going to start with the obvious, which is customers. So I think everybody out there knows that customers can pose a danger to strippers. The most extreme examples of this are that there's actually been abduction and murders of strippers. There's actually been serial killers that target sex workers and strippers. However, this is rare. It didn't happen to any of the girls that I knew, and it never happened to any of the clubs that I worked at while I was there. It actually happened at one of the clubs I worked at like a year or two before I started working there. That is like the most extreme cases of customers being dangerous, but we as dancers have to be very careful on who we choose to cultivate, go up and talk to, because you don't know who these guys are. They're complete strangers, and they can turn out to be psychos, stalkers, weirdos, and that has happened. I'm pretty sure that every dancer out there that's worked in the industry can tell you some horror stories about customers. There was a guy that would follow me from strip clubs, and he would wait for me outside, try to accost me. And there's been times where I've been in the champagne rooms and customers have tried to like force themselves on me, force their hands inside of me. So it's just, you have to be really careful. You have to be constantly on your toes and super aware of what's going on around you. And that's hard to do sometimes as a stripper, because I know when I was a dancer, I was pretty much constantly wasted, but I still managed to be aware of my surroundings. There were instances of customers robbing dancers, taking money out of their, because when we're dancing, we carry our money along with us, and customers have stolen money from the strippers. Another thing that you have to watch out for is getting drugged. That has happened to me at the clubs. There was one instance in particular, oh, this was so horrible, where I was actually in the champagne room and I had to get up and go to the bathroom. When I went up and I went to the bathroom, I stood up and I face planted into the wall, into the door of the bathroom stall. Like head first, no hands, face planted right into there. I like tipped right over. And at the time, I had like my own personal driver that took me to and from clubs. So I remember going upstairs and I called him and I was like, Frank, you have to come get me. Somebody put something in my drink. I can barely talk. You have to come get me. And he came and got me, and he actually had to like talk to the bouncers and be like, yo, Harley needs me to come get her. They actually let him come inside the club up to the dressing room to come get me. And I was just like standing there, like he said I was like this, naked, staring at the mirror. He had to help me into my clothing, basically carry me into the car, drive me to my place. He put me in bed and he waited outside of my room for 3 hours until I regained consciousness. He was a lifesaver. I still talk to him to this day. He's such a wonderful man, but I feel like he saved my life that day. And that's not uncommon for girls that work at clubs to get drugged. So you have to be super aware of your surroundings and very careful of who you talk to and the relationships that you form, because they can blow up in your face. And not just with customers either. I formed relationships with other dancers that did blow up in my face, like big time. Like big time. Like fisticuffs in the bathroom stall, punching each other right in the face, pulling hair, that kind of blowing up. I actually had a girl that I let come stay with me, and she ended up robbing me of $1,000. So you have to be really careful of the people that you surround yourself with. And that's part of working at a job, is that job is hugely influential on your life, and you end up forming relationships with the people that you meet there. And it's very common for girls at the club to end up in a romantic relationship with a guy that they met at the club, either a customer or somebody that works at the club. So common, seen it so many times, and it happened to me myself. I ended up dating a guy that I met at Oasis in Philadelphia. He was a member of a 1% biker gang, and I ended up in a relationship with him for 3 years. And it was a toxic, volatile, and violent at times relationship. And I got introduced to crystal meth by him, which I started doing regularly. So yeah, you have to be really careful, because you'll end up entangled in some relationships that can be detrimental to who you are as a person and what you're trying to do in your life. There's been girls that worked at a strip club as a part-time job, and they ended up in a relationship with somebody, and that person ended up getting them thrown in jail with felonies on their records. So now they'll no longer be able to work or have a future in certain types of careers because of that. So you have to be really careful of the people in the strip clubs. They do pose a threat to you. And it's really hard, because working at a strip club is very isolating. You spend a lot of your time alone because of the hours that you work. You go into work at 6 o'clock at night, and you get off at 2 to 4 in the morning. So all day is spent like recuperating, resting, and getting ready for the next shift. So you really don't have that support network of friends unless you meet them at the club. And it can be really hard to find a good, solid, meaningful relationship with people that you meet at the strip club. Along with that, some of the clubs that I worked at had criminal elements present, either in the management or the clientele. For instance, I spoke about this in my previous video. The last club that I worked at actually had a bouncer there that was a member of a gang, and he was selling drugs to the customers and the dancers. I was one of his customers, one of his like steady customers. And the club that I worked at before that actually had a gang shooting outside of the club during work hours, where one of the members was shot dead. And it's not uncommon. I mean, I really don't want to stereotype all clubs, but there is a criminal element that can be present, and you'll be surprised. Like, some of the really nice clubs that I worked at had criminal elements present in the management. Another danger that dancers have to deal with is the prevalence of drugs in the workplace. They are a constant. They were a constant in all the clubs, every single club that I worked at. And some of the clubs took very extreme measures to try to prevent the drugs being used there. For instance, when I was working at one of the gold clubs, they actually took all of the doors off the bathroom stalls, and they took the lid off of the water tank on the back of the toilet, so the girls couldn't like put their drugs there and like do them. And they covered the toilet dispensers with Vaseline. So if you tried to put your drugs on it, it would get like in the Vaseline. That was one of like the really extreme examples of it. But most clubs, that's just, they were ridiculous. That was a horrible club to work at. But most clubs will be really vigilant against drug use, because they don't want that there. They don't want to see dancers all effed up stumbling around the floor. There's been clubs that I worked at where the dancer had been like ODing from the drugs and the ambulance had to come take her away. So drug abuse is constant, and if you are somebody that already is predisposed to drug abuse, do not become a dancer. Do not become a dancer. I wish I had known this because I have a very addictive personality. I started dancing before I had a habit, but dancing accelerated that habit like 200%. So it's just always there, always prevalent. Drugs are just part of the job. Honestly, looking back at my time dancing, I would say the number one danger posed by stripping is to who you are as a person, your fundamental self. And the changes that that can cause can be very harmful. And it's not just me that I recognize these in. I've talked to other dancers about this. So let's just talk about what dancing is. To begin with, you are taking your exterior, your body, you are dressing it up, making your exterior up to be sexually alluring. You're going on stage, you're exploiting your own body for monetary gain. And when you sit there and you talk to customers, you have a persona on, you have your stage persona, your stage name. I was Harley, Ava, Reno, Frankie. Don't ask me about the Frankie. I don't know what I was thinking on that one. But you're pretending to be somebody else, and it devalues who you are as a person, and it makes you feel disconnected from yourself. So you begin to feel like you don't matter, that you don't have any value, that all people care about is your exterior. And on top of that, because you're constantly working in under the influence, all the things that you spent time doing before that might have brought you joy fall by the wayside, and that accelerates the drug abuse. It's just, I wish I can say that it was only me because I was like addicted to drugs and, that it was just my fault, but it's part of the job. It really is. It can make you feel like you don't matter, like you don't have any value. That can result in some very, very harmful behaviors, like accelerated drug use, promiscuity. There was girls that regularly slept around because they wanted that affirmation, that human confirmation that comes from sex, but because it was not meaningful, connective sex, it just further made them feel unloved and not worthy. All right, I gotta jump in here real quick. No woman should be judged for who she decides to sleep with. There is no judgment allowed. These are just some of the side effects that can come from working in the club, like feeling lonely, feeling isolated from your friends and your support network, being overworked, having low feelings of self-esteem and self-worth, feeling separated from your body. And those side effects can cause you to seek companionship from people you wouldn't ordinarily choose. And those decisions can be influenced by the drugs and alcohol you'll be consuming while at the club. And going home with these men while under the influence of drugs and alcohol can lead to some very iffy situations. So that's what I'm trying to say here. I'm not trying to pass judgment, and neither should you. And also, like I said before, you end up putting yourself in bad relationships because you're lonely, you're isolated because of your job, and you just want that human connection. And unfortunately, I wasn't as picky as I was supposed to be, and I ended up in some very poor relationships because of that. So I would say that dancing is not something that you should do long term. But unfortunately, it ends up being a career for a lot of these women. And I remember seeing this happen so many times that a girl would come in, she would say, like I did, that I just want to have a part-time job. I just need the extra money. Fast forward a couple months, she had quit her main job and was dancing full-time. Fast forward a couple years, she's got a habit, she's prostituting on the side, and she doesn't really have a life anymore. And in the most extreme cases of this, I can tell you about a girl that I used to be very good friends with. I lived with her for a time, but me and her were dancing at the same club. And when I met her, she was a go-getter. She had like a main job that she was going to. She had 2 kids. And she ended up really getting into heroin and coke, and she really went downhill. She lost her kids. She turned to prostitution. And I remember it was like a year ago that I went to my primary care doctor, which is not in the best part of town. And she was like a couple streets over doing street walking, like trying to make money prostituting herself on the street. So that's the sad part about this job, is it's not supposed to be your main job, and a lot of girls get wrapped up in the lifestyle and they lose themselves in it. I can tell you a couple of clubs that I worked at actually had girls working there that were in their 40s. They were still making money, but they were in their 40s and they didn't really have a life. Their life was their job. Their friends were their customers, and they didn't have any future because they got really wrapped up in the lifestyle. There's also girls that I know that were working as dancers, started dancing, worked a couple of years, and progressed right on up the sex industry ladder into prostitution, pornography, that kind of stuff. Some of them did actually very well at it and turned it into like an actual lucrative career. A lot of them kind of ended up there because they couldn't dance anymore, because they had too many personal problems. It's a hard lifestyle. That's all I can say about that. All right, I am so happy to introduce my friend Star. We danced together for a while in Baltimore. So, what's your name? Who are you? How long did you dance for?
So, my name is Star, and I danced. I started when I was 18, and I stopped when I was 27 or 28. So, like 9 or 10 years, which is a long time.
Yeah, I went 12, so I feel you on that. And why did you stop?
Well, I met my now boyfriend, and it was something after I'd done it for so long, like it sucked the soul and the life out of me, and I needed a complete lifestyle change, and the only way that was going to happen was just completely separate myself 100% from dancing. Yeah.
So as somebody that worked for such a long time in the field, what would you say the 2 big, give me 2 dangers and disadvantages that strippers have to deal with at the job?
So I would say the accessibility to the drugs and the alcohol, because it's everywhere. It's so easy to find. I mean, it is the easiest thing in the world to find there. And then just doing VIP rooms with people because you don't know them, and the chances are they are under the influence of some substance, and you're pretty much locked in a room. Sometimes bouncers come by and check, sometimes they don't. Yeah. And even if something happens and you're screaming at the top of your lungs, the music is way too loud for anybody to even hear anything. Yeah. So for me, those were the 2 dangers and really scary things that I dealt with for almost 10 years of my life.
Yeah. I mean, those VIP rooms, I've had stuff happen in there that I was seriously shook. And I actually had customers that scared the bejesus out of me, and they would come back and I would have to factor in do I really want that money bad enough to do more champagne rooms with this guy, because they can be so intimidating and really forceful.
They absolutely are. Even in a regular lap dance, it was the same. And in the more private rooms, for me at least, the more aggressive they were, because they weren't being so closely watched, and there wasn't somebody 2 feet from them. So they, I can get away with anything because we're locked in this room, and I paid all this money that I can do whatever I want. Yeah. And that's not, I mean, for me at least, that's that was never the case. It
No.
was to sell a fantasy and not myself.
Yeah. And that was so confusing to men because they really thought like, hey, some men were like, these strippers, they'll do anything for money, and they would push you for it. Like push to do these things. And sometimes the money was like a lot, like thousands of dollars. And other times it was insulting, but still, like, we're strippers, we're not there to do these things.
It is, and I think a lot of the times that we're in that job and in the industry, you're not seen as a human being with a life and a family and feelings and boundaries and, you know, limits that you can and won't do. You are an object, and even like the women that would come in, that they would see you the same way. Like it wasn't just the men that saw you as like an object and like this like piece of meat or whatever. The women did as well.
I talked about that in my last video. Like for me, women were more aggressive on average than men to do lap dances and champagne rooms with.
Because they thought that women, you automatically think, this is a girl, I'm a girl, I can get away with so much more.
Yes.
And the rules always apply, at least for me, to everyone. And
yeah.
Most of the time, you know, it was a fight to get, you know, a guy or a girl or a couple to follow my rules and my limits. I'm like, well, I've walked out of VIP rooms because I'm like, this is not worth, you know, how much ever money.
This is just the first part of our interview because we went on after this, and I think it was like a little too long to include in this video. So I'm gonna upload the whole thing to my channel in a couple of days. Keep an eye out for that. What she had to say was so relevant, super smart, and I think you guys will really enjoy what she had to say. Making this video though, I really want to say that these are the dangers that we have to face and deal with. Some of us, a lot of us dancers, deal with them gracefully and without the negative consequences. But these do come with the job. I don't want you to stereotype dancers thinking that all of us have to go through this. A lot of the girls that I work with are beautiful, strong, wonderful women that use dancing as a way to get ahead in life, and they do. They do get ahead in life, and they conquer the world. And I'm so proud of them. And there's girls that I met dancing that I'm still friends with to this day, and I have nothing but the utmost respect and love for them. When you look at women that work as strippers, I want you to remember the things that I talked about. These are things that we have to deal with. These are things that come with the job. They are baked in. So when you look at a stripper, you should respect her because she is hustling, and it's not an easy environment to work in. Stripping is hard work. So I want you guys to tip your strippers. They deserve it. But we've reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for sticking around. I really hope you liked it. Please leave a comment down below letting me know what you think. Give me a big thumbs up. Again, that really helps my channel grow. And I hope that you subscribe to my channel. I have so much more coming on, guys. I've lived such a crazy life. I'm recovering from it now. So I hope you guys can stick around and watch my journey. When you subscribe, hit that bell so you'll be notified of these upcoming videos. And until next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you later.